Hi there crafters, Louise with you. Thanks for popping in and checking out this layout share featuring Vicky Booten's Flower Emporium. I'm going with a cute little animal layout today. I'm trying to vary my photos a little bit and try some slightly different things. So I'm using the Flower Emporium for some family, some everyday moments, and today is a little animal share. So for anybody who hasn't seen my videos or any of my layouts, this is my little ginger ninja. His name is Popeye. He is just over 12 months old and he's just very cheeky. So these photos were from the day I was trying to change the sheets on the bed, and anyone with cats will know that it seems to be that they love when we're changing the sheets, so they get on there and have themselves a little bit of a play. And because it was so cute with my ginger in the blue of the sheets, I snapped a couple of photos. All right, so I'm starting with a text background, and I'm just going to trim about 3/4 of an inch off of the top and side in order to give me a little bit of a black background to go on this layout. You can also see that when I'm using a piece of cardstock, I will actually cut the middle piece out in order to save a little bit of that inner cardboard. I am distressing the edges, so distressing kind of seems to be a bit of a go-to for me at the moment, and you know what, I'm just rolling with it. So if I feel like distressing, I absolutely will, and you can see that with my photo as well. I have distressed that blue patterned paper. Now, I didn't necessarily go into this with a blue layout in mind, but it definitely took on that sort of life of its own as it flowed and developed. So it's not often that I sit down when I'm creating with an idea in mind. I sort of let elements and collections and photos and how I feel about things at the time speak to me. And one of the things that I'm really enjoying is building these clusters. If you've watched any of the other videos recently, you'll know about those clusters that I've been building. And I just think that they're a really great way to create, there's tags and cut apart pieces and frames and little pieces of ephemera that you can sort of build and move around and lay on your page. So before I start to think about what I'm going to put in a background, because essentially I do like to add some kind of medium to a background, I actually describe my style as paper plus medium. So I like to use lots of paper elements, but I do like to have some kind of medium in the background. And that varies from layout to layout and what's available to me at the time, whether it be inks or pastes or different things. So paper plus medium is the way I describe my sort of crafting ability, and I like to make these clusters before I decide what I'm actually going to put down behind it. Now, this sort of develops in terms of, adding a few little florals and bits and pieces around that cluster. The florals, I think, would probably have to be one of my favorite things from this particular collection. I love that I can just pick up a flower or a leafy stem or a heart or a word title or a piece, and it just works beautifully. It gives you that little bit of something to put on those layout clusters, and it just works for me. So definitely a bit of a favorite with what we've got going on with the crafting and this particular collection at the moment. All right, so cluster's looking good. I do like to add a few little foam elements behind certain things just to give a bit of dimension. If you don't like your layouts too chunky, a great way to add dimension is just with some sort of black ink around the edges, creating a few little shadows and bits and pieces. That will give you that sort of bit of dimension without being too bulky. And I loved this little cat. I was so excited when I found this cat, and I think that it's super cute, and I love that, without even knowing that was in the chipboard pieces, I found this cat, and he of course had to go onto my cluster as well. All right, now this particular background is feeling not overwhelming, but I just want to dull it down a fraction. And so I just take my white gesso and my spatula and I sort of spread a little bit of this around, not too thick, but I don't want it too thin either. I want you to be able to see that there's white. And you can see as you hold the cluster over it that it gives some really interesting contrast. Now you can dry your gesso and mediums with your heat gun if you choose. I like to let mine dry naturally, so I'll just pop it aside and either leave it overnight or work on something else while it dries. And this little technique, just rubbing some distress ink around in the background, is not something that I do enough. I often forget about how interesting it looks when you just move a little bit of a color around. And you can see I've used my very technical circle element, which is a dinner plate, to trace around. And I'm also going to add some water to a little bit more of that distress ink and then go ahead and get my splatter on. I did extra splatters off camera, and then I did some stitching as well around that little circle. I do this for two reasons. One is that I like the texture, but two, I also need to cover up that circle that I used pencil on the back of the layout. So you can see I've drawn the section where I knew my layout was going to go so that I didn't bother stitching in that area, because let's face it, stitching already takes long enough. You don't need to do any more than you actually have to. And then I decide, once I'm gluing all this down, I'm just going to pop a little black title with the word heart sort of maneuvered into that circular area down low, and that helps coordinate with my black border. All right, for the final steps, I'm going to tuck a couple of these little hearts in. I'm also going to use some of the heart puffies. So lots of those fill in the gaps on those title sheets. And it's important, I'm trying to bust this particular collection. So I pop a few of those on in the background as well. All right, this is probably one of my favorites so far. I know I say it all the time, but thank you as always for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you'd like to leave a comment, please feel free. I do enjoy reading them. And happy scrapping!